So this all seems to have like a dark tone while everything is bright and cheery. What's going on here?
Well, that's why it is whimsical terror. You know, you never know.
Hi, welcome. This is Neenie's Tucson, and tonight we're going to visit one of my old friends, Ted and Lorraine Ramirez, and we're going to visit her charming, most spectacular, spooky garden. So come on.
Hi, Neenie, how are you?
All right.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Come on in. Lorraine's waiting for you in the
All
back
right.
room.
Thanks. Yes. Lorraine.
Because it's extra creepy, I think. So I got a bunch of bugs from the dollar store and turned them into new little spooky babies. So, and of course, the theme is House of Whimsical Terror right here.
And you chop their heads off and
I
then just
did.
put other things on them.
Easy to make and super
And there's
cheap
a
again.
lot.
And there's a lot of, when I get started on the damn project, I don't know when to stop. That's my thing. This one in the corner over here, I made her a long time ago. I like the way her teeth kind of glitter on the back of her mouth. You know, creep them out. It's pretty easy to
Yeah, that's old-fashioned. Is the babies used to have that. Like the
uh-huh.
first year of their life in some cultures, they wear a little.
That was me. Yeah, I was bald for the first year, so they made up with it with bonnets. And then this one, I love him because he reminds me of Ted. Doesn't it look like Ted? Oh my God, a little bit. It didn't start out that way, but it did. And then the other thing about my little creepy creatures is that when I first started making them, kind of evolved because I didn't make very good bases at first, and so they would be really wobbly. And then I learned, you know what, I better make a better base. And so in some cases, I made the base look
Creepy.
even worse than whatever it's holding up. And this is a spider, and he's one of my favorites too.
I think this is fun. You know, the curtain
Yeah.
holding back by.
Yeah, why not? It looks like something Neenie would do at her house. So I said,
If I
"Let's do
could."
it." And then, of course, there's the backyard. So the main thing about the backyard, I think, for any place is like having enough lighting. You don't want it to be just super dark, you know. So I did very, and I do it just a little bit at a time, you know, like maybe I'll do the tree one day and then I might do the bower the next day, and then I'll do the lights behind the bower the next day. So it's something that you kind of do a little bit at a time. And then of course these are my girls. This was my latest effort to creep people out. I think they came out kind of cute. I like them. I like the whole little setup we have here. And the theme is I smell children, you know. I have been doing it for about, I don't know, 15, 16 years, something like that. Before that, I wasn't really all that into Halloween. I would do a big thing for Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter and and Halloween just kind of got lost in the shuffle until a friend of mine who knew how much I like to entertain and decorate was appalled that I didn't do Halloween. And I really love this girl. She's just the best person ever. And she said, Lorraine, you just have to do Halloween. I can't believe you don't do it. So that's what got me started. I just, well, if Ricky says I should do it, I guess I should. You know?
Yeah.
So I just started one little project at a time.
So you grew up in Ajo.
Yeah.
And where's your family from?
Well, they're from Ajo too, essentially. My dad came from Sonora, from a little town called Pitiquito. And he came in 1915. He was 6 years old when he got to Ajo, and worked in the mine for 46 years. And my mom got to Ajo. She was born in Nogales, and she got to Ajo, I think in the late 30s, and met my dad there. And they.
Did she decorate and make a festive household?
She had the best parties, and she always threw the doors open. Like, you know, I could have as many parties as I wanted, and I started throwing parties when I was like 9 years old, and she would do all the cooking, and you know, she would just let me have free reign. And so I guess that's where I got it from, you know. Because she used to have wonderful family reunions at the house, and so the house was known for being an exceptionally warm and welcoming place. Anybody was always welcome there. And it was always full of people.
Yeah.
That's how she lived. How both of my parents lived.
So it's right now we're celebrating the Day of the Dead, and can you tell me what it represents for you?
Well, for me it was in Ajo not so much a celebration as an observation. And we did prepare for it, but in a completely different way than the way it's being celebrated here in the United States now. It feels more like spectacle to me now than the Day of the Dead celebration or observation that we had growing up in Ajo. For several months before Dia de los Muertos, my mom would start making coronas. And this is
What's coronas?
Coronas are the wreaths for the graves. And back in the days, you couldn't just go to the dollar store and buy plastic or fake silk flowers.
Well, I remember when we first knew each other, you were making these
piñatas,
gorgeous,
probably,
and these gorgeous flowers, you know, out of a newspaper
crepe
or
paper.
something, or crepe paper, you know.
Yeah, beautiful colors. That. And my mom would, so she would take orders from different people, and the whole house would be, first it would be full of bottles with the flowers stuck in them, and then she would go into assembling the actual wreaths, and everything was done on a shoestring. Like, she used clothes hangers, you know, doubled up, and then she would wrap that with newspaper, and then she would wrap that with crepe paper, and then she would make, you know, a display with the flowers. And the flowers, since they were just made out of crepe paper, they weren't going to stand up to the weather for very long, so she would dip them in wax, and they had a really cool waxy look to them, and they would last a little bit longer. And then when the day came, my tias, my aunts and my uncles, and cousins, and my mom and dad, if he was available, if he wasn't at work, we would all just get up real early in the morning and go to the grave, the cemetery, and clean the cemetery and put the wreaths down, and that was it. And then we would all come back to my mom's house and have a nice meal, and that was the extent of the celebrations that we had. So definitely very much aware of it.
I remember similar things, you know, in Mammoth, Arizona, or we didn't have a grave in San Manuel, but you know, even the graveyard on North Oracle, you know, I remember once being, I don't know what age I was, and there was a mariachi band. You know, and it was you know, there wasn't a parade or anything. It was just, I guess, some relative like music, you know.
Yeah.
And so that was that was just interesting and cool.
So I don't have much to say. I've never participated in the Day of the Dead celebrations that they have here in Tucson. And at random times, we've gone to Ajo to clean graves.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
Without
is
the
that.
the big hoopla about it. You know, it was a more quiet, thoughtful kind of event. You know.
Right. So when did you move to Tucson?
1975, March 6th, I think. 1975. Yeah.
And you're married to Ted Ramirez, who's Tucson's musical heritage troubadour. And so when you met him, and his family is historically connected to Tucson, and that's how many generations?
Well, with Ted I think is the 8th generation Tucsonan, and then our kids and grandkids and great granddaughter follow that line.
Right. Here. So what is it? Do you make these all by hand? They're all unique and have different faces, and so we were talking the other night, and you said some of these represented some relatives that you have.
It just happened that way. I'm not so skilled that I can go, oh, I'm going to make this and it's going to look just like my mom, or I'm going to make this and it's going to look like my niece. It's after I make them, I go, oh shit, that looks like Ivy, or oh, that looks my sister, like my sister Norma, you know. So it's not something that that I try to do, but after it's done, then I kind of assign names to just an expression, or the eye or something will remind me of one of my relatives, you know.
So do you have a workshop, or
no,
you just make them out on the table?
Yeah, wherever it's comfortable. Sometimes you can find me out here when the weather's nice. If sometimes you'll find me at 3:00 in the morning in one of my back bedrooms that I have as a little craft room, and I'll be back there, you know, making these creepy creatures all by myself, and I don't even get scared, Neenie. Can you imagine? Ted does. Ted's mortified until you know. Until I take them all down.
Yeah, and your sweet little great-granddaughter?
Yeah,
She's helping you sometimes?
Yeah, she does.
She she's not freaked out?
Not in the least bit. She's not scared of them because she helps me make them, and she knows that it's just paint and clay, and if she helps me paint them, then she calls them her creepy creatures too, you know. So it's fun working with them. And she loves to do art projects, so I like to foster that. Anytime you can express yourself in that kind of creative way, I think it's a positive thing. Even if they don't come out that great, or even if they don't last that long, you know, it's the project of it. Like I throw a lot of parties, or I have in the past, and a lot of times I get just as much pleasure from, you know, the week or so leading up to it in anticipation, you know, and wondering who's going to come, and putting something together and then going, oh, well, that's not quite right, you know. So it's not something you can do by the seat of your pants.
It all comes together.
Yeah,
it does.
You have to work on it for a couple of weeks before and set these up, you know. Like even just today, Coco over here took a dive.
Yeah.
So we had to reassemble her.
Yeah.
So nothing is, you know, real permanent around here.
Right. And in art history, we learn about a momento more. You know, it's just a moment in time.
Ah, okay.
You know. What would you say that in Spanish? How would you say that?
Un momentito en el tiempo, I guess.
Yeah.
Un momentito. They come and go, you know. And I guess that's another aspect of my take on like Day of the Dead. Like I'm an atheist. I have been all my life. I don't have any sense of spirituality or the afterlife or heaven or, you know, anything like that. I never have. I don't ever remember believing that or thinking about that. So for me, it's very easy to live in the moment, you know, and what I believe. Like I do like to honor my ancestors and go and clean the graves from time to time. but I'm not stuck there. Like, you know, I carry them in my heart. They live in my heart. The people that touched me, that nurtured me, that loved me, they will forever remain here, but I don't believe that they're, you know, guiding me in any way. Like, their physical presence, I don't feel that at all. It's more like they influenced me so strongly with all of their goodness, that hopefully that's what I carry, and then hopefully I will transfer some of that to my younger relatives, and they can carry that on in that way, you know. But the physical aspect of even graves or bodies, that's just not anything that's particularly important to me. Be good right now, you know, while you can. Like that pot of soup that you brought me when my mom was dying. I will never, all the prayers in the world don't match that, you know what I'm saying? So that's just
just being aware of what's needed, you know, whether it's a celebration or some sad thing or some struggle. I think the culture that you brought, you know, it's beautiful, and just, you know, remembering all of your relatives that, you know, made flowers or made tortillas or
those
great
traditions,
cooking.
those traditions are important to me, and within our family, both Ted and I have tried to instill that in our kids and our grandkids and our great granddaughter, that there's value to it. Not everything has to be bought. Not everything has to be electronic, and to honor the process of whatever it is, making the tortillas. Like my son and I have, for really the past couple decades, threatened to make the sobacanas, the really big tortillas, the Sonoran style tortillas. No one makes them anymore. Even St. Mary's tortilla factory doesn't make them anymore. And so that was the last straw. We're like, we have to do it. My mom made the best ones. No agraviando los presentes, but my mom made the best damn tortillas ever. Oh, and she would make them on a mesquite fire, and she made them, if not daily, at least several times a week.
Did she keep them in just the flour or the balls of dough in a Tupperware? I had a friend who's always had on the counter.
Tupperware was modern. That came later.
That was modern.
She had a big old zafata, a big old metal bowl that she used, and I have a metal bowl as well. And yeah, there's a whole process, and there's, you know, resting in between, and then you have to make the fire, and it's definitely a skill. When you first start making them, like I said, the first few that Miguel and I made looked like Wisconsin with all the lakes included, you know. There's holes in them.
What was the metal, or how did you cook them?
Well, I still have my mom's comal, and then Ted contacted a friend of his who runs a restaurant, and was able to have a bigger comal made for Miguel. So I kept the old one of my mom's, and then Miguel has the big one. So we've been developing the art of tortilla making.
So how often is this happening? I have to know.
Well, when we first got started, we were we were into it. We did it, but then I got busy with the Halloween party, and he got super busy at work, so we haven't done it now for a couple of weeks. But that's the secret, is the way you get really good at it is you have to do it almost on a, if not daily basis, several times a week, because there's an art to knowing how to stretch them and cook them, you know. But boy, is it worth it. There's just nothing you can buy at any store, including the carnicerias that compete with the homemade tortilla.
Yeah. So maybe that's another thing, we can come back and maybe film an episode of
tortilla making at the Ramirez's. Yay!
So what would you like to tell someone that might live in a different city who is interested in Tucson or just the Hispanic culture?
Oh, it's such a rich culture. It's just really beautiful. And I grew up with parents who were very proud to be Mexican American, and they celebrated it in every way. Like, we took several trips into the interior of Mexico together. We visited relatives there very frequently. My dad had piles of books of Mexican poetry and literature that he read to us all the time. He could recite beautiful poetry just off the top of his head, and did so often. He was, not a shy guy, if you know what I mean.
I did meet him and have heard many stories.
And my mom was the same thing. And I don't know if you can see it, but over there I have the remnants of a Mexican calendar. And when I was a junior in high school, I was the prom committee chairman, and I got to decide what the theme was going to be, and I wanted it to be like a Mexican theme. So we built this great pyramid, and then my mom made those 2 Aztec calendars out of cement. She had 2 of them.
Oh my goodness.
And then she made a giant paper mache eagle with the serpent in its mouth, and got real nopales to go around it. So the whole theme was Mexican, and that's kind of how we've always lived our life, to celebrate our culture, because it is a very rich and varied culture, and there's more to it than
we know.
Than we know.
Than we experience.
Come and visit some of the museums that we have here in Tucson, or take a few trips, past the border, go more into the interior, and you're going to find some of the best and friendliest, warmest people you'll ever know. And so everything, and then being married to Ted, and the music, the rich, it's not all just mariachi. Mariachis are great.
Oh, I know.
But there's so much beauty in Mexican music going back, 1,000 years. Our sense of style, our love of our culture and our country,
and the
richness of the country. I mean, Mexico has like thousands of miles of coast on both sides, so the cuisine, it's not just tacos, people. We have an amazing array of foods, of original fruits and vegetables that will satisfy any palate. So I'm very proud to be of Mexican heritage, and I try to celebrate it as much as I can all the time.
All the time.
Why not? What else is there? So I would. Anybody that's maybe listening from Cincinnati, Ohio or something, if you have a choice between going to Phoenix and going to Tucson, come to Tucson, because really in Phoenix you're just going to get more of what you've already got over there in Cincinnati, Ohio, whereas in Tucson we have really tried to preserve more of our culture here, the original indigenous culture, O'odham culture, Yaqui culture.
I know, some of those red sauces, like the red sauce we had the other night in the carne. How would you describe the carne?
It's chile con carne.
Chile con carne. That's a homemade sauce.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I can tell the difference. Than a
and
can.
it takes a little more effort, but the flavor, and we shouldn't lose that. We shouldn't. Cooking is not that hard. Sometimes we make it seem like, only a few can be chefs, or only a few people can be great cooks, but really, just read a recipe,
and then add your own.
And what I've done to augment my, the foods that I make, is if I taste something and I'm like, whoa, this is really great, I ask for the recipe, and then I actually go and try to make it myself. And I don't believe in withholding recipe secrets. I figure the more people that know how to cook, the better. So it's a fun thing to do, and more people should really roll up their sleeves and start cooking, and the hell with those fast food restaurants, I say.
Well, thanks for letting us in your house tonight.
It was a pleasure to have you. It's been a lot of fun, and I want, this might seem like a little over the top, but when I think about some of the first parties that Ted and I had when we were first married, we didn't even have chairs, but we would invite a bunch of people over, and even if we just had to sit, and not even grass, we didn't have grass, so we would just end up sitting on dirt or buckets turned upside down, and somehow managed to have fun.
Yeah, there was always music, great food.
Yeah, that's all. And company, and the people that come to join you.
Lots of love and lots of humor, lots of great stories.
Yeah, I think that's a trick for anybody that's afraid to have, oh gosh, I don't know how to throw a party. Just start small and build from there, and do it with love.
Pretty soon you'll learn paper mache and
how to make flowers and tortillas, and you'll be all set, Neenie. That's all you need. Thank you for being my friend. You've always been an inspiration to me, Neenie.
We've had some good times.
Yes, we have. Don't talk about it.
Don't talk.
Oh.